The will reading was scheduled for a Thursday morning in March, and I arrived 12 minutes early to a conference room on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like carpet cleaner and old coffee. I set my bag on the chair beside me, smoothed the front of my blazer, and waited. Across the table, my brother and my sister sat with their spouses and an attorney named Robert Kellner, who had the particular confidence of a man who had already decided how the morning would go. My mother sat at the head of the table. She had not looked at me since I walked in. I had not been in the same room as my family in 4 years. The last time was Thanksgiving at my aunt's house in Fresno. My brother made a comment about my job. My mother agreed with him. My sister said nothing, which was its own kind of agreement. I drove back to Sacramento that same night and spent the next 2 hours sitting in my car in my apartment parking lot, not crying, just very still, the way you get when something finally confirms what you had been trying not to believe. I stopped answering calls after that. Not dramatically, I just let the distance grow until it became the default. My father was the one who kept calling. His name was Gerald, though everyone who knew him well called him Jerry. He was a quiet man in the way that certain people are quiet not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned to be careful about when they say it. He called me every Sunday evening for the 4 years I was away. He never asked me to come home. He asked about my work, my neighborhood, whether I had found a good mechanic yet for the Civic I bought secondhand the year before. He sent me a card on my birthday with no message inside, just his signature and a $20 bill, which I kept in my desk drawer without spending. He died on a Tuesday in January. Cardiac event, sudden, at home. My mother called from a number I recognized and I answered because I always answered when it was him, and for a moment before she spoke I thought it was going to be him. I drove to Fresno the following morning. I stayed 3 days, helped with the arrangements, slept in my childhood bedroom with the window cracked because the heating in that house had always run too warm. My mother and I did not argue. We were polite to each other the way people are polite when grief is functioning as a temporary ceasefire. My brother gave a eulogy. My sister organized the food. I sat in the second row and held my father's sister's hand because she was 81 and had come alone from Phoenix and needed someone to hold on to. I drove back to Sacramento without discussing anything about what came next. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived from a firm called Whitmore and Associates informing me that I was named in my father's will and that my presence was requested at a formal reading on March the 7th. I read the letter twice, set it on my kitchen counter, and went to work. I did not tell anyone I had received it. The will reading was not something I had prepared a speech for. I had not rehearsed anything. I brought a folder of documents the way I bring documentation to every professional meeting, because that is the habit of someone who has spent 7 years working as a contract compliance officer for a regional healthcare network. My job is to know what is in writing and to make sure it matches what people claim out loud. I have sat across from hospital administrators, insurance adjusters, and state auditors. I know what a room feels like when one side of the table believes they have already won. This room felt like that. Kellner opened the meeting with a procedural summary. My father's estate included the house on Delmar Avenue where my family had lived for 23 years, a savings account, a small investment portfolio, and a storage unit in Clovis that no one had known about. Kellner said my father had updated his will 14 months before his death, and that the updated document contained specific language regarding asset distribution. My brother leaned forward slightly. His wife put her hand on his arm. Kellner read through the standard provisions first. Some furniture went to my aunt in Phoenix. A watch went to my brother. A set of dishes my grandmother had brought from Portugal went to my sister. My mother retained the house and a portion of the savings. Then Kellner paused and looked at me. He said my father had designated the investment portfolio in its entirety to me. He said the current value was approximately $240,000. He also said the storage unit in Clovis, contents included, was mine. My sister made a sound that was not quite a word. My brother said, quietly but not quietly enough, that this had to be a mistake. My mother looked at me then for the first time that morning. Her expression was the expression of someone who has just seen a piece of furniture rearranged and cannot remember giving permission. Kellner asked if anyone had questions about the document's language. My brother had several. He wanted to know when the update had been made, who had witnessed it, whether my father had been under any undue influence at the time. Kellner answered each question with the measured patience of someone who had anticipated all of them. The document was properly executed. 2 independent witnesses. My father had been in full cognitive health at the time of signing. There was no legal ambiguity. My brother turned to look at me directly. He asked what I had done to make this happen. I looked back at him and said I hadn't done anything. He said that I had been absent for 4 years and that absent children did not receive investment portfolios while the people who had actually been present got a watch and a set of dishes. My mother said my name in a tone that I recognized from childhood, the tone that meant she was about to say something she had been holding for a long time and had finally found a room large enough to release it in. She said I had always found ways to take from this family without giving anything back. She said my father had been soft on me my entire life, and that apparently that had continued past the point where it made any sense. She said that the 4 years I had been gone, the 4 years she had spent not knowing whether I was well or struggling or somewhere in between, had been 4 years she would never get back, and that whatever I had done to arrange this outcome, it was exactly the kind of behavior she had come to expect from me. The room was very quiet after that. Kellner looked at his papers. My sister stared at the table. My brother's wife examined her own hands. I did not respond immediately. I had learned a long time ago that responding immediately to that particular tone from my mother produced nothing useful. I waited until the silence had settled fully and then I asked Kellner if I could submit some documents for the group's reference. He said that was within my right. I opened my folder. Inside were 71 months of bank transfer records. Beginning in January 6 years ago and continuing through the December before my father died, I had sent a transfer on the 1st of every month to an account my father had given me the routing number for during a Sunday evening phone call. The amounts varied. Some months it was $300. Some months during better quarters at work, it was closer to $800. The total across 6 years came to just under $31,000. My father had never told anyone. Kellner looked at the first page of the transfer records for a long moment. Then he looked at my mother. Then he set the page down and looked at my brother. He said, with the careful neutrality of a man who is paid to be neutral, that this documentation appeared to indicate a consistent and substantial financial contribution to the estate over a significant period of time. He said it might explain, at least in part, the reasoning behind the portfolio designation. My brother said he didn't understand. I said that for 6 years, every first of the month, I sent money to Dad. He used it for the mortgage shortfall. He told me not to tell anyone because he didn't want the conversation that would come with it. My mother said she hadn't known. I told her I knew she hadn't known. Dad asked me to keep it between us and I did. She said, more quietly, that she hadn't known any of this. I said that was the point. It was never about anyone knowing. My brother was silent for a moment that was longer than the moments before it. Then he asked why. Why had I done it without telling anyone? Why had I stayed away for 4 years while still sending money? Why hadn't I said something? I thought about how to answer that honestly without being cruel. I said that the last time I had been in a room with most of the people at this table, I had been told clearly and in several different ways that my choices were wrong, my career was wrong, my life was structured incorrectly, and that I was a disappointment relative to what had been expected of me. I said I had stopped coming to rooms like that one not because I stopped caring about the family, but because I had run out of ways to be present without being diminished. I said that sending money felt like the one thing I could do that was useful without requiring me to sit through a conversation that went nowhere. No one responded to that for a while. Kellner shuffled his papers with the practiced quiet of a man who has learned when not to speak. My sister said my name, just my name, without anything attached to it, the way you say someone's name when you are beginning a sentence you haven't finished writing yet. I looked at her. She said she hadn't known it was that bad. She said she knew things were tense but she hadn't understood the degree of it, and she was sorry she hadn't asked. I told her I appreciated that. My mother had not spoken since her last sentence. She was looking at the transfer records that Kellner had passed toward her side of the table. She was reading them the way you read something when you are trying to locate a feeling you recognize somewhere inside a document full of numbers. Her finger moved along one of the rows, tracing a date, January 1st, February 1st, March 1st. 71 months in a row. She set the page down. She said that she owed me an apology for what she had said earlier. She said it plainly, without softening it into something that wasn't really an apology. She said calling me someone who takes without giving back was wrong, and that she had said it from a place of hurt that was not an excuse for saying it. I told her I heard her. My brother said he still thought the distribution was unequal. Kellner said that was his client's prerogative and the document was legally sound. My brother sat back in his chair. I did not tell him it was fine. It wasn't something I needed him to accept in the next 10 minutes or in the next 10 months. Some things get revised slowly or not at all, and you learn to carry the uncertainty of that. The meeting ended 30 minutes later with Kellner walking through the remaining logistics. Signatures were collected, copies were distributed, people gathered their coats from the backs of chairs, and the room began to empty with the particular efficiency of people who need air and open space after something compressed. My aunt from Phoenix touched my arm on the way out and said my father would have been glad I was there. I thanked her and meant it. My mother stopped beside me near the door. She did not have a prepared thing to say. I could see her searching for it and not finding it and deciding to speak anyway. She asked if I would come by the house before I drove back to Sacramento. I said I would come by for an hour. The house on Delmar Avenue was the same as it had always been in its bones, same kitchen tile, same hallway with the light switch that sticks, same back porch where my father used to sit with his coffee on Saturday mornings and do absolutely nothing in the particular way that some people are very good at doing nothing. I stood on that porch for a few minutes by myself while my mother made tea. She knew I wouldn't drink because I had never liked tea, and she had never quite remembered that. There was a cactus on the porch railing that I didn't recognize. Small, in a terracotta pot, with a handwritten paper tag still attached from wherever it had been purchased. The tag said its name in small print. My father's handwriting was on the bottom of the tag in pencil, a date from 8 months ago, the month he had apparently bought it. He had been there 8 months ago, on a Saturday, buying a cactus and writing the date on its tag in pencil. Just living, just doing the ordinary things. I hadn't known about the cactus. There were probably 100 things like the cactus that I hadn't known about, small accumulations of a life I had been adjacent to but not inside. My mother came to the doorway with 2 mugs. She saw me looking at the cactus and said he had been very proud of it, that he told her it was impossible to kill and had spent the following months finding ways to almost kill it. I laughed before I could decide whether to. She handed me the mug and stood beside me and we looked at the cactus together and didn't say anything for a while. The silence was not the silence from the conference room. The conference room silence had been full of things unsaid and positions held and people calculating. This silence was different. It had some room in it. She asked how long I had known about the mortgage shortfall. I told her Dad had mentioned it in passing on one of our Sunday calls, about 6 years ago, and that it had sounded more serious than passing, and so I had asked him directly, and he had told me the actual number, and we had worked out the arrangement from there. She said she had thought they were managing fine. I said I think he wanted her to think that. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said that was very much something he would do and that she was going to have complicated feelings about it for a while. I said that seemed fair. She asked if we could have dinner sometime. Not a big occasion, just dinner, the 2 of us, somewhere she didn't have to cook. I said yes. I meant it. I left an hour later, as I had said I would. I sat in my car in the driveway for a few minutes before pulling out, not because I was upset, but because I was trying to locate the correct word for what I was feeling. It wasn't relief exactly. It wasn't resolution. It was something more like the specific sensation of a window being opened in a room that has been closed for a long time, the air not yet changed but the possibility of change present in a way it wasn't before. My father had known that I would show up for him even when I didn't show up for the rest of it. He had known it quietly, and he had never made a production of it, and he had left me what he left me because of it, in the same way he had always done things without announcement, without requiring acknowledgement, just the patient and consistent act of seeing someone clearly. Loretta used to say, my father used to say, in his own way, in the way that people say things without formal language, that love in a family is not proven in the moments of crisis. It is proven in the first of the month transfers that nobody knows about, in the Sunday evening calls that nobody sees, in the cactus bought on a Saturday in July, with the date written on the tag in pencil. I do not know yet what my family will become from here. My brother and I have not spoken since the conference room. My sister texted me that evening, just to say she was glad I had come. My mother and I have a dinner on the calendar for the 2nd Saturday of next month. That is not nothing. There is something I want to ask you, if you have stayed with me this long. Not about inheritance, not about legal documents or estrangement or the particular arithmetic of who was present and who was absent and who gave what without telling anyone. I want to ask you something simpler than all of that. Is there someone in your life you have written a conclusion about, a parent, a sibling, a child, based on information that might be incomplete? Not wrong exactly, just incomplete. Just missing the transfers that nobody mentioned, the calls that happened when you weren't in the room, the cactus on the porch that you didn't know about yet. Because sometimes the person you think you understand the least is the one who has been paying the first of the month, every month, in whatever way they know how.